calling the office of the clerk of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, and Tax Court. If you are calling about a case in the mayor... Clerk's office, may I help you?
Hello, I was just transferred. I think I might have got transferred to somebody else's call. I was trying to reach Chief Administrative Officer Justin Forkner, and I was transferred to a Kate Neal, it sounded like, on her voicemail.
Right, she's his assistant.
Oh, okay. And he's not available either?
Not to my knowledge.
And she's not available?
I don't know. They're not even in this office.
Okay, so do you know who would be available with the Office of Judicial Administration? I'm trying to figure out who would be responsible for administering a disciplinary action or some sort of complaint process against a clerk of court. And I've been transferred to quite a few different offices, and I'm just sort of wondering if there's somebody that oversees all these offices, if anybody has the answer to the question.
A complaint against the court would be you would go to court services.
Right, I've spoke with them quite extensively. They tried to tell me to call the Office of Judicial Administration as well as the Association for the Clerk of Circuit Courts of Indiana, which is a private organization that also referred me back to the Office of Court Services and the Office of Judicial Administration.
Right, and unfortunately those are the only numbers we have. This is the clerk's office for the Court of Appeals. So.
Do you know what happened? Do you know how somebody would file a complaint against you? I mean, you're the clerk's office. As a clerk, is there a disciplinary procedure that you are concerned with as you do your job?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
I mean, I'm sort of trying to find out what public information is available. I mean, it would seem on the website for the Office of Communication, Education, and Outreach for the judiciary here, it says the public is best served when accurate information about cases and court procedure is made readily available. The Supreme Court encourages press coverage of the judicial branch as an avenue for the general public to learn about the courts. So that's sort of what I'm trying to do is educate the general public about the court procedure, and I seem to have a gap in my information. You know, there's quite a bit of things covered: how to file a complaint against an attorney, how to file a complaint against a judge. You know, and a judge oftentimes orders a clerk to do things. I would think that a judge would be the appropriate party, but from what I can tell, everybody keeps telling me that I have a good question, and then they come back and tell me they don't know. And that seems very strange, as there's no complaint process for the clerk. So I'm just sort of curious if I can work my way up the food chain.
Do you have a complaint against the clerk?
Oh.
Is that what you're wanting to file?
I may at some point, I suppose. And that's sort of what I'm trying to figure out is what I would do should that have to happen. But just the same, is it possible to speak with the actual Indiana Supreme Court's office? Do they have designees that are able to... I mean, I'm sort of at a last resort here. It also actually says that the Supreme Court is a last resort in the state of Indiana for, you know, the explanation of the law, or lack thereof, I suppose.
Okay, hold on just a minute, because we've given you the resources that we have available. I'm not sure.
Yeah, those resources aren't really turning up the answer that I'm seeking out.
Well, again, sir, this is the clerk's office.
A simple yes or no would even suffice. Yeah.
I think that's spoken and said, but I don't know. I don't know who else to send you to if these other, if you're not, just like the last one when you were transferred to...
Do you mind if I ask who provides your training services? Are you obligated as a clerk's office to undergo some sort of training services where those materials may outline a disciplinary procedure? I'm assuming those notebooks and such would be available to the public. I could just...
Okay, hold on just a minute, please.
Okay. Hello.
Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I did speak with my office administrator, and basically, I mean, it's what I've been telling you. It would be court services would be who you would need to go through. The
Do you
chief
mind?
officer of the court services apparently is not available. Well, his assistant apparently is at lunch or something, and that was really the only contact information I can provide.
That, so, all right. Well, as I said, I already spoke with the Office of Court Services.
Okay,
Quite
that's who would need to be to address your issues. It's certainly not the clerk's office to address
No, no,
the
no, no. But
questions
here's the
you've
thing:
got.
is, oh man, governmental websites tend to provide one phone number for every office, and then a
I
prompting service
understand.
with like 4 options. So I just hit 0.
Well, like
Anyway,
I said, this is the clerk's office.
I apologize
They
that
handle
they
it.
have your number listed for all these different offices.
Well, and that's why we tried to, transfer you to the proper folks.
Um, I still haven't figured out who the proper folks are because it's definitely not the Office of Court Services. They were quite clear on that.
Well, then maybe they can provide additional input on who you might
Yeah,
need to speak
so
with.
they referred me to the Office of Judicial Administration. That's the administrative arm of the Supreme Court. So how do I speak with them? Not a voicemail or a
Well, I
message
can't
being passed
assure that
along. I'd like to actually speak to somebody who can answer my question.
I can't guarantee that anybody's going to answer your phone, sir. It's lunchtime. I don't know who's in the office, who's out of the office. I don't know.
Okay, so I should
We
call
are
back
different.
later then?
Calling this number is not going to get you anywhere, sir.
Right. Do you have an does the Office of Judicial Administration, the entire administrative arm of the Supreme Court, not have a single phone number to themselves? Do they ever call you as the clerk's office by chance? Do you have
Sir, that's the same as court services.
Okay. So
would
I
like to help
suppose
you,
I'll
but
call this number and have you transfer me to the Office of Court Services, and then I'll ask them about the Office of Judicial Administration. Or do you want to just transfer me to the Office of Court Services now?
Okay, I
And
will
I
do
can
that
talk to them for
directly.
like the 3rd time.
Okay.
Okay.
Indiana Office of Court Services, how can I help?
Hello. I am attempting to reach the Office of Judicial Administration, and
Okay.
my question is referred to this office over and over, so I suppose I'll ask you guys again. I would like to know who is responsible for administering discipline or overseeing a complaint process against a clerk of courts. I explained that I had already spoken with you, but the clerk was quite certain that you would have the answer. But
Okay, and what's your name?
my name is Chris Throgmorton, Throgmorton. I live in LaPorte, Indiana. And I'm something like a citizen journalist, and I'm curious about this very specific part of the judicial process.
Okay.
You know,
Give me 1 second.
okay.
Hi, are you still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. So the only person that'll handle that is out today. His
Who
name
would
is Jeff.
Jeff what?
Yes. So I can transfer you
I'm
over
sorry,
his
what?
voicemail, or you can you hear me?
Yeah, Jeff what?
His name is Jeff Reese, and he can. He's the only one that will be able to help you. Are you available? Do you want his voicemail, or?
What is his
He's not
position?
in today.
What is his? What is he?
He's a staff attorney here.
He is a staff attorney, so he's not like the director of a department or anything.
No, he's not a director.
Okay, so and who am I speaking with?
You're speaking with Deja,
Deja. All right. And what is your capacity there?
the receptionist.
Okay. How long have you been working there, Deja?
What can I help you with?
It would seem that the Indiana Office of Court Services is formerly the Division of State Court Administration and Indiana Judicial Center, now one agency. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm looking at Indiana Code 33-24-6-3. And it says that the Division of State Court Administration shall do the following: examine the administrative and business methods and systems employed in the offices of the clerks of court. So it would appear by the statutes that I can find that regard this matter that I am speaking to the appropriate agency.
You are.
And I was yesterday, and I'm just sort of so. What is the process to, I guess, examine the administrative and business methods and systems employed in the offices of the clerks of court? How exactly does that happen?
How does what happen?
How does one request an examination of the administrative and business methods and systems employed in the offices of a clerk of court?
The person that I did recommend is not in the office today. He's out. So I can send you to the
right. So
voicemail,
this entire
and
office is responsible for this activity, but only one person in the office knows how to do it, and he just conveniently happens to be gone. Was he there yesterday?
Yes, he was here yesterday.
Why didn't he have an answer yesterday when I called?
I didn't talk to you yesterday.
Could you find out who did talk to me yesterday and find out if they asked him yesterday and if he was one of them people that said they didn't know or that it was a good question?
I have no way of knowing who was here. I know I did not speak with you.
Do you know
but I can forward you over to Jeff Weese's voicemail.
And he's just a staff attorney there?
He works there, yes.
So is there...
He handles that.
Right. Would there be a...
different people handle certain things, yes.
Does he have a supervisor?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Hi, you still there, Chris?
Yes, ma'am.
How you doing? Okay, so yeah, that's all of the resources that I will be able to give you. If you would like, I can send you over to his voicemail.
Oh, no, no, no.
If
I'd
not,
like to
that's going to
speak
be
to
all that
a
I can
person.
get for you.
See, that's the thing is, if he's just a staff attorney, so he does have a supervisor. What is his supervisor's name?
I can't give you that information.
I'm
if
sorry,
you
why
would
not?
like, I can forward you
I'm
over
sorry,
to
why
his
not?
voicemail. I can forward you over to his
No, 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 no.
voicemail.
I'm sorry. I
If
have a new
not,
question.
I can't
So
help
why?
you.
I'm sorry. This is a public official, and I'm not allowed to obtain his supervisor's name.
I can forward you over to his voicemail, and he can.
Okay, so at this point, I'd like to
to
speak
you
with
when
your
he-
supervisor, if you don't mind. Do you have a supervisor, Deja?
Yes, I do.
All right. Are they available today by chance?
So I'll transfer you now.
To your supervisor? Because I don't want to talk to anybody else's voicemail.
Hello, are you here?
I am. But if I hold much longer, I'm probably going to need another hand.
Hi, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Like breaking up. Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay. Does your supervisor have a name? No? Okay.
Hi, are you still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, so I am transferring you over to Vicki Davis.
Oh, I've already spoke with Vicki Davis, but
That's my supervisor.
okay.
Hi, this is Vicki Davis. Can I help you?
Ms. Davis, good afternoon. I spoke with you yesterday. My name is Chris Throgmorton. I'm
Your name is, I'm sorry, Chris. Last name?
for what?
Could you spell that for me?
T as in Thomas,
Okay.
HROG as in grandmother, and then Morton like the salt.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm still trying to find an answer to my question. I've been transferred, to several different places. I've spoke with the Association for the Clerks of Circuit Courts for Indiana. I've spoken with your office a few times. Somebody mentioned speaking to the Office of Judicial Administration, so I keep, trying to reach them. There's no number listed for them. Nobody wants to, I'm being told that there's only one individual that can answer my question in that whole office, even though yesterday you guys told me that your office wouldn't be responsible for this, but it would seem that you indeed are. Because you used to be the Division of State Administration, which would be who would be responsible for examining business practices by the clerk. So my further question though would be if is there anybody there that's privately paid? Do any of you not work for public funds? Because if I'm asking for a staff attorney, because the staff attorney's kind of low on the totem pole, and I assume since he wasn't there, or since he's not there today and he was there yesterday, he may have had the opportunity to answer my question, and if he didn't, it's because he didn't know the answer. So I don't see much sense in transferring me to his voicemail. So I asked to speak with his supervisor, and it would seem Deja will not tell me who his supervisor is. So now my question would be, what is the complaint process for your office? Are you guys governed under the Administrative Orders and Procedures Act that's covered in 422.2, or do you have some sort of internal remedy that I would need to exhaust to challenge? I don't understand how you guys can operate with all this public information being fed to the public, that you do administer some sort of process to the clerk's office. You provide training materials, education, things of this nature, but nobody's able to readily identify what this process is.
Sir, to my knowledge, we provide ancillary education to circuit court clerks, but we do not provide them with direct education.
Right, you said that before.
Basis.
So I guess my question would be, is the Office of Indiana Court Services, do you ever contact the Office of Judicial Administration?
And sir, if I may complete my thought, if it's possible that Jeff Reese, who is a deputy director in this office, may be able to answer your question, but it's possible that he may not be able to answer your question. Jeff isn't in the office today, but I'd be happy to.
Was he in there yesterday?
I do not know if he was in the office yesterday.
Simple public records request can find that out.
So, if you'd like to pursue that route,
is there an office that supervises your office?
I can give him your name and your telephone number. I can also give you the name of our executive director, who is Mary Kay Hudson, and you can talk with her.
Is she available?
I do not know if she is immediately available, but I will find out. I can put you on hold, and I can find out if she is immediately available to talk with you. The Chief Administrative Officer, his name is Justin Faulkner.
Yeah, that's who I called originally to speak with, and nobody can seem to reach him.
And I can give you the telephone number for his administrative executive assistant. She will be able to tell you if he's available and or take a message so that he can call you back. So let me just get the I'm historically bad with telephone numbers and don't want to send you in the wrong place. I don't understand why that's not there. It should be area code 317.
Okay.
232.
Okay.
That's not what I thought it was. I think it's 2525. Can you hold a minute so I can just verify that?
Sure.
I'm trying to be helpful.
Is there a way to reach the Indiana Supreme Court's personnel?
That's going to take you back to the Office of Judicial Administration.
All right. So
Okay.
the courts don't have phones. What do they use? Smoke signals or something?
Unfortunately, sir, we have a protocol that takes you back to the Office of Judicial Administration.
Right, but you do not have so you have a protocol to keep me from going to the next step in the chain of command, but not to actually provide an answer to my question. All right. So again, how does one call the Indiana Supreme Court? Because they oversee all of your offices, is what I'm reading here.
And that information, our protocol would be to take you back to the Office of Judicial Administration because that's where they're going to send you.
Okay. So does anybody actually have a phone number and somebody who's like, on a Tuesday available? Is there somebody for the Office of Judicial Administration that I can actually speak with if everybody's going to tell me that's who I need to talk to or whatever? So can I actually talk to them? Or are they not available?
So.
You do realize that a lot of people probably would have just given up on this process already. And whatever, if they had a valid complaint against a clerk, it would have went unheard. So my original question was what the statistics were about.
I did have a number wrong. Okay, it's 317.
Okay.
232 2542.
All right, and that's for?
That's for the Office of Judicial Administration.
All right.
And you're going to want to talk. You're going to ask to talk with Kate Utley, Utley. Excuse me. She's got married. Kate Utley Mead, MEAD.
Like the honey liquor.
Maybe, yeah.
Like
MEAD.
M as in mother.
M as in mother.
Okay.
And so who you, Justin Faulkner is a direct report to the Supreme Court. So he's the person that I think you want to talk with.
Yeah, that's who I actually have requested to speak with about a half an hour ago when I made this call originally. It's very difficult to get a hold of him. Do you have a number for him?
And I would ask to be put through to his voicemail because he will, if he's not immediately available, he does return his telephone calls.
Okay. And
then Mary Kay Hudson, I can, if you want to hold a minute, I can see if she is available.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So if you can hold a moment for me.
Not a problem.
Okay. Sir?
Yes, ma'am.
I still have you. Okay.
You do.
I just went to check on Mary Kay Hudson, and I checked her calendar. She's currently in a meeting. She has back-to-back meetings until 4 o'clock.
So the rest of the business day, she's out.
According to her calendar, her Outlook calendar, yes, she is in a meeting. I will send her your name, the substance of your complaint, and your telephone number, which I have down as 219-380-8142, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you have the telephone number for Justin Faulkner's administrative assistant, Kate Mead. So when you call 317-232-2542, you're going to want to ask to speak with Kate Mead.
All right.
Okay.
I guess in the meantime,
And then I will also send an email to Jeff Weiss. And your real question is, who in county government oversees?
I don't believe I ever mentioned the words county government at all.
Oh, okay. So who provides education and can discipline circuit court clerks? Does that actually capture?
Who is responsible for the disciplinary process, if one at all exists, for the clerk of courts? And I guess since we're getting real specific and you're writing things down, it would seem that the Division of State Administration and the Indiana Judicial Center has been absorbed into one entity, which is the Indiana Offices of Court Services. You guys seem to be outlined in this Indiana code I'm looking at as administering examinations towards the biggest business practices or something of that nature of the clerk's office. So that would seem to be squarely what I'm talking about. I guess I'm asking how you guys do that, what the process is. I suppose you can take this as a public records request at this point in accordance with the Access to Public Records Act. So whatever ancillary training you provide, I'd like to read any of it that mentions the word discipline. I'd like to know what exactly, every job I've ever had, you could get fired, or in trouble if you didn't do your job correctly. Somebody actually was paying attention and cared. And it would seem that the judge that orders the clerk to do things is subjective to a judicial process, but the clerk is not. It just seems very strange to me. So yeah, being that the Indiana Code's pretty clear that you guys administer some sort of examination process, I guess I'd like to know what that is. I originally was seeking out a disciplinary process, but it seems that you have it worded a little bit differently than I did. But yeah, I also would like, I guess, a yes or no as to if I have the only answer to this question. And that would be, would this be solely covered Indiana Code 5-8-1-35, which says that any person may file a petition with the circuit or superior court claiming that a clerk was negligent in their duties. It would seem that it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. I just swear under oath what happened, and I submit it to the same clerk's office that I'm accusing of misconduct, and the judicial officers that she works with and for would hear it. Obviously, that's a conflict of interest. So who would be next in line to hear this? That's my question. Once I file this petition, And all these judges are unable to hear it because of a conflict of interest, and they all five recuse. Who is the Indiana Supreme Court representative who's going to hear this when I request that it be certified by the regular judge in accordance with my local rules for certification to the Supreme Court? Who in the Supreme Court actually is going to hear this once I get it transferred there?
Okay. I think I've taken the notes, and I'll send an email to both Ms. Hudson and Mr. Weiss.
All right. Now, being that this is a public records request now, they're pretty much obligated to respond.
I believe, sir, that the request for public records has to be made in writing. But I will.
Though that would be at the
confirm
discretion of
that
your organization. But now that you're telling me to put it in
uh,
writing, I'll gladly do so. That will.
with Mr. Weiss and the staff attorney who oversees requests for public records.
All right. Well, I have a filing due by Friday, and I want to make sure that the clerk isn't there because nobody keeps track of her, and I want it to be filed without incident. So I have to be real sneaky about it. So you have a good day, and I will talk to you never again probably because I don't know what exactly it is that you're